Okay, hello, welcome back to another game of chess. Today we are facing e4, so of course playing a Sicilian defense today. We are going to see knight f3 and then g6, and if d4 we are going to play bishop g7, the hyper-accelerated pterodactyl. Now, a common response to this is taking, where we go queen a5, win back the pawn, and have an interesting game. Another common response is c3, which kind of transposes into something of an Alapin accelerated dragon, or hyper-accelerated dragon. We take towards the center. After they recapture with the pawn, we then claim the center with d5, and likely we will see e5 from our opponent, trying to shut down the diagonal of this bishop. Then, the main idea is to try and use the fact that we understand this pawn structure quite well. It's, the same as the advanced French pawn structure is how I refer to it, with the pawn on d4, e5, d5, and eventually e6. However, as you will know in the French defense, or as many of you may know in the French defense, if we play e6 straight away, which is the first move in the French defense, it kills our bishop. So here we're going to play bishop g4 first, so that we can get our bishop out of this light squared pawn complex to then play e6. We are locking our bishop out of heaven, little Bruno Mars reference there, and when it is provoked to move, we do not step back. We happily, and it's a strange case in which we do this, trade it off for a knight. Now, we're not doubling any pawns, we are simply trading off our light square bishop for a knight. Why? Because our knights are going to be able to move really flexibly around this closed center. Knights can jump around, they can apply pressure nicely to backwards pawns, for instance, like d4. Whereas this bishop, and the light squared bishop, is going to be nullified completely by the fact that all but one of our pawns right now are on light squares, and I mean, we might as well just play a6 to prevent any knight b5 ideas in the future. So our pawns will all be on light squares. We'll have what is known as a light squared pawn complex, and in that sense, the light squares will be dominated by our pawns. Now, they've pinned our knight here, which is making use of the weak dark squares. Obviously, if the light squares are strong with the pawns, the dark squares will be weak. So ideally, I wanted to play knight f5, but of course that would lose my queen. I think it makes sense completely just to unpin, playing queen b6, which is a common idea in the French defense, and in the Caro-Kann, and in anything where you push the c-pawn, although I'm a proud Caro-Kann hater. Why play c6 then c5? You can do it in one move, you moron. We put pressure on b2, and we put pressure on d4. Now, d4 is the main point that we're trying to put pressure on, generally because this is known as a backwards pawn. I mentioned that earlier, but I'll elaborate now. The e-file and the c-file, or let me draw this in a different color, let's say yellow. So the e-file and the c-file are the adjacent files to the d-file, of course, simple stuff. There is no pawn in the c-file. If there were no pawn in the e-file, this would be known here on d4 as an isolated pawn. However, there is, it's just unable to be defending this pawn. Like it cannot go back to e3, and this pawn can't come forward to allow it to be defended on d6. So this is what we call a backwards pawn. Effectively saying, will they take? Effectively saying it's stuck backwards behind any structural support from adjacent files, so it's a very weak point. Now, honestly, I could take with the knight, but I really like the pressure my knight puts on this pawn. I'm going to take with the king. Why would we take with the knight while our knight is applying such nice pressure here? We recapture with the king. I mean, maybe that was inaccurate. Maybe the knight should have come back and then bounced out to f5. Probably, that would have been what an engine would tell me to do, but we can take with the king. I don't mind a bit of that. The queen then lifts up to defend b2. But surely we can just now pick up this pawn. We cash in on the pressure that we put on a very weak pawn. And then this pawn's going to fall. Honestly, we're playing queen takes. The reason being that if we see a queen trade, we are going to be the only one better fighting for a win in that endgame. And we are going to be able to apply immediate pressure to this pawn. We are threatening to take the bishop and double the pawns here. We are also threatening knight c2, which attacks the trapped rook. So it's not even a fork. Like generally when you go to c2 with a knight, it's a fork. It's not even a fork. Here, they defend our fork. I mean, I would have assumed bishop d1 is the best move, moving the bishop and defending the fork. Now we can just take the bishop, and after pawn takes here, we can take this pawn. And they are left 2 pawns down. A knight for a bishop, okay, fine, but your knight's on a3, and my bishop is in the complete center of the board, applying pressure everywhere. The bishop completely now dominates this knight. There are 2 squares in between the bishop and knight. So this is an interesting pattern that you can just always notice straight away. If you've got 2 squares here, then the bishop and the knight are going to see the same set of squares like this. So we could just play a6 and ask this knight, what are you doing? We could also take this, but then maybe you get some activity with the rook. Maybe the knight comes in, maybe the rook gets in. I just want to play a super simple game now. A6. And, you know, I kind of mentioned earlier, playing A6 is nice because we finally put literally every pawn on a light square. We could not ask for better pawns to maneuver around with this bishop. And now, I mean, this is the simplest, like, it's almost beautifully simple. We can just trade this off. And in doing so, completely destroy the pawn structure. They now have 5 pawns, 4 pawn islands. A pawn island is, well, it's a little island of pawns. It's where if you have empty adjacent files where there's a pawn, then that sort of cuts off one little island. Pawns where they can protect each other. There are no... They are all isolated pawn islands. All isolated pawn islands. These are doubled and isolated. This is, I would argue, the worst configuration of 5 pawns we could possibly see. None of these pawns can defend each other. Mine are all beautiful. We're going to play rook c8, ready to take here. Presumably they're going to play rook b1, and we're not going to give them the time of day by letting them infiltrate here and trying to pick stuff up. Their pawns are permanently weak, ours are temporarily weak. This seems like, okay, pawn for a pawn. It's not, because this pawn's really weak. So, I think probably we should just either go rook c7 or b5. Now, the only problem with b5 is you can play a4. Then I take, then takes here. Yeah, then we're playing b5. I do not want to allow you to take with check. Like, I just want to stay completely secure. They now do play a4, but I'm going to take here. Pawns are just going to fall. Takes. And if you look at what's happened, yes, there's been these 2 pawns taken off this side of the board for our 2 pawns, but we're now just going to be able to pick this up. We have an extra 3 pawns in this position, a better king. I mean, if here we can just always go to f6. Obviously, we need to move the rook now. I'm just going to go across to the c file. I think that's a very useful open file to be on. And then bring the other rook to the c file, so that if there are any checks, we can go rook c7. Oh, this is just so clean. So clean. They drop down. We're going to go here. You go back up. I'll literally drop the other rook back. How about that? Now your rook is forced to move back. Any trades is just going to be so bad for our opponent because the game just becomes even simpler to win. And we just have a beautiful central pass pawn 4 squares away from promotion. And I feel like we should just push it. Here we go. d4. Pass pawns must be pushed. We can put both rooks behind it if we need. Our king is completely safe from checks. There is just nothing for our opponent to do here. Now we could give this check to go after this pawn. I feel like there's probably no need. I might just want to go here. Yeah, we're just going to keep pushing. You can come across, but then I'm just going to defend the pawn with a rook. And you can attack it a whole bunch of times if you want and win this 1 pawn. But we have 3 to play with here. So, I mean, yes, you can go rook back, but if you want to win this pawn, it's going to have to be at the cost of trading all the pieces off the board. So, actually, you know what? I might go rook back to c8, threatening a little rook c2. Ooh, a repetition. Oh, you know what? We're going rook c2 anyway here. Because if you take, then I take, and take here. It's a simple rook endgame conversion. Now we're just going to see another exchange. And there is even less potential compensation for our opponent. Let's just play. Let's just get a connect 5. How about that? How about a connect 5? Are you going to take this now? I mean, you can, but then it's a 4-on-2, and okay. It's just the most trivially won game I've ever seen. Bring the king up. Our pawns are just dominating this king. Bring the king up again. There is no way they can possibly keep track of both. In fact, we can play check, sacrifice the pawn, then push our pawn, because the opponent's king cannot get in the square drawn by our pawn to the back rank, and will not catch our pawn. So if they take, then we are pushing, and this is just a beautiful example where the king, you know, it's trying to defend 2 people, and it just can't. It just can't. It does not have the wingspan to do so, and then we can promote to a knight, because that's how I'm feeling. I mean, a little promotion tonight. Might as well. Hopefully they resign now, out of the pure disrespect. Why are they not resigning? Like, I just thought they'd resign here. We could have obviously promoted to queen. But now we're going to go here, force the king off their pawn and away, so that I can go and win it. You know what? I'm going to set myself a challenge. Let's go. Let's mate with a knight and bishop. I might time-lapse this. The actual ultimate disrespect. We hold all of the squares. We have drawn out the red carpet for the pawn's promotion, and there is nothing that they will do to stop. They resign. Little did they know I was going to promote to a bishop and probably stalemate them. Very clean win. Let's look at the analysis. Okay, so here we are in the analysis. 98% accuracy. This is a perfect game pretty much. 3 inaccuracies, although I'm fairly sure that's just my opening theory, if I'm being completely honest, because, you know, I wear the inaccuracy symbol as a badge of honor when it is in the opening. Let's go through that game. So e4, c5 is the Sicilian defense. Then here, g6, okay, there's one of the inaccuracies. It's the hyper-accelerated dragon. This is established theory. Look, you can see here, Masters database, nearly 10,000 games. d4 and bishop g7, the hyper-accelerated pterodactyl now, played 2,500 times by Masters. c3, cd4, cd4, d5. Now, d5, again, it says inaccurate the engine. d5 is played 90% of time in this position by Masters, 1.1k. This is the theory, so you completely ignore this inaccuracy mark here. g6 and also d5, both perfect, and then bishop to g4. There's a game between, there's a Hikaru Magnus game here, where Hikaru played knight h6, which is pretty funny. Bishop g4, bishop here, and then e6. Everything from now on is completely accurate. If we look at the Masters database yet again, because why not play like Masters? You don't try and play like a computer. You are not a computer. This is something which I bring to my my personal chess coaching, and, you know, getting my teaching methods from like pre-1800s chess, so that I can, or pre like 1900 chess, so that it's just without a computer influence. Because I just genuinely think the way to get good at this game is to play like people who are good at this game, not engines who are good at this game. So yeah, we go for this completely an established line. This is now theory. We take, and knight c6, knight develops, queen b6. Is that the best move? I think it must be. Bishop, there was a mistake from them, because we had queen b6, targeting those 2 weaknesses, and taking with the king is the only move to maintain this this really strong advantage here. Beautiful stuff, keeping the problem going on here. Queen there, I mean, they're trying to defend b2, fair enough, but from now, it's just a simple game. And then we go here, take the bishop, take the pawn, knight comes in here, a6, take, bring the rook to the c file, rook here, b5, a4, takes, and takes here. It's so simple. Like, hopefully while you were watching that, you just thought, how's he making it look so simple? Because it is. In a lot of cases it is. When you genuinely understand your opening, if your opponent doesn't throw anything interesting at you, which mine definitely didn't, they just made like a couple mistakes, bishop g5, knowing queen b6 to punish, and then taking with king was a stroke of, you know, absolute genius, although not that hard to actually work out when you think about how beautifully placed the queen and knight are. And I mean, from here it's just so simple. But yeah, I'm sure I'm not the only one who would have promoted to a knight there. I mean, when you can give the check with the knight, it feels so nice to do it with the knight. Obviously queen would have been better, but an absolutely immaculate game, really clean, and hopefully really instructive for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe. If you really enjoy my content, check out the membership offer. And if you really enjoy how I teach chess, let me know in the comments, and I will put your username on the priority list for the personal one-on-one chess coaching. See you guys soon with another video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.